The Playhouse company is presenting a discussion that is hosted by Nick Nzama with a panel of experts that will be talking on an important topic, gender-based violence. We want men to sit back and introspect about why they do such horrid things to women in our society. We want a society that cares, a society that is loving, a society that is protecting women, young and old, protecting young men against other men. We want a society that cares about everybody's well-being. So sit back and listen to Nick and his panel of experts talking about this very important issue. We want to say to all the beautiful women, young and old in our country and all over the world, we wish you a safe and a happy Women's Month.
Gender-based violence and femicide is a very sensitive subject because it's a scourge that is ravaging our society, and a lot of people are dying, especially now during COVID-19 and lockdown. A lot of people find themselves locked up with the very same abusers. A lot of people are finding themselves with no one to turn to or no one to run to. But whilst we're still looking at solving just the symptoms of the problem and not looking at the root causes of the problem, we'll never win this battle. One of the biggest problems that we have is societal norms, especially when it comes to raising the boy child. So one of the things that we need to look at is how do we raise our boys? But I'll leave the rest of the discussions to our panelists who all come from different spheres of society, starting with Captain Roshni.
Thank you, Nick. I have 30 years of service in the South African Police Service, and I have 23 years of investigation and command experience within the Child Protection, Sexual Offences and Family Violence Unit.
What perhaps do you think are the root causes of gender-based violence and femicide?
The main root cause of gender-based violence is alcohol. And your second contributing factor is the mind frame with which a male is raised. There is this myth that if you are raised by an abuser, you yourself become an abuser. If you were raised by an alcoholic, you yourself become an alcoholic. But it is a myth because it is a mold that we can break in society.
Thank you very much. At this stage, I would like to also bring in Dilega.
I am Dilega Santi. I'm coming from African Sinako Arts. It's an arts organization that basically looks at discovering and also developing young people living with disabilities. I have been in the sector an activist now for at least 26 years to date. Gender-based violence activities, they start happening in our homes, behind closed doors, by people that we love. So the challenges that young girls and also young women that are living with disabilities, before it could even emerge from outside, they start from within.
Let me move on to my next panelist.
My name is Bongani Mahlagu. I'm the spokesperson for Legal Aid South Africa in KZN province. We are an organization that is constitutionally mandated to provide legal representation as well as education. And in terms of how we are structured, is we've got 128 offices nationwide with 21 offices in the province of KZN. What we have observed is that people might not be aware that they are in an abusive relationship. With gender-based violence, it actually has got phases. Before it even gets physical, maybe it would have been emotional, maybe it would have been someone throwing assaults at you, you know, all those are different aspects of gender-based violence. So what we do as the organization is we go out to the communities, we educate them about their rights. We've got a special interest that we've taken on women and children. So we worked quite a lot with organizations in the communities. We also work with well-recognized institutions such as Your Child Line, as well as the National Movement of Shelters. So we do quite a lot of educational programs. If maybe you need legal assistance, we as the organization are there to say this is the legal assistance or this is the legal relief that is actually available to you.
Great stuff, great stuff. Let me start with you, my captain.
Alcohol is the worst and most destructive medium by which our society is gripped. A lot of our criminals today fall back on the alcohol, I was drunk and I cannot remember doing it. That is the perspective of the perpetrator. We then go on to the outlook of the victim herself. You have a group of young girls who have now decided, let's go out for the night. And any attention is good attention. So any guy that shows them any kind of attention or affection is welcomed. It's a norm. Within an hour of meeting her in a nightclub, he's already told her, I love you, I want to marry you. And she's had a few drinks. Her senses have dulled a bit. So she's not thinking straight. And the one friend is so concentrated on this attention that is being focused on her. She hasn't noticed that one or two of her friends have disappeared from the nightclub. Until the next morning, you find her lying on the sidewalk without the bottom half of her clothing on. And when you speak to her and you ask her, do you remember what happened to you last night? The last thing that she can remember is, I was sitting at the bar and I was talking to this guy and he bought me a drink. We give talks out there to schools and to communities. We try to tell them that if you want to go out for a night on the town, ensure that the alcohol you drink comes to you in a sealed bottle or a sealed can. That way you safeguard yourself.
Youngsters go out clubbing to look for places who will actually foot the bill.
I think in society, parents bring their children up with the rigid rules and regulations when they are in school. So when a youngster has now evolved from a scholar into a university student, the freedom is there to do with as I please.
It's scary to think of what Roshni is mentioning, but in that, we also need to factor in, again, what is our role as fathers when it comes to grooming our young boys when it comes to this? And are we teaching our boys about consent? Why should I go for somebody who's vulnerable? As society, these are the discussions that we need to have with our young boys. That having a lot of girlfriends or going to a club and actually spending money on women doesn't make you a better man. Let me move on to Ndileka.
When we talk of society, we talk of people that come from families. Most people with disabilities within their families are hidden or are perceived as a curse. One of the things that make mostly people living with disabilities, especially women in their families, to be abused is based on the disability grant that they get. Especially those that are from the families that did not even kind of accept them as people from the very word go. All they see them as means of bringing money, and that money is not even looked or used to look after them. I think if as families or as the society we can change our approach. You know, our approach gets to be a responsive approach rather than being the prevention approach. So prevention, it starts from teaching from within the families. And teaching goes, you know, irrespective of a child is a boy child or a girl child, or a child has any form of disability, or any child is able-bodied. So, because those people at the end of the day, they are going to be members of the society.
With us, sometimes it happens that somebody will walk into our office, then they say they would like to file for a divorce. We take all the the necessary documents while we put them through legal aid application. Then when you pick a phone and just to follow up, say, no, we've decided not to. It's unfortunately, it's the cycle. It keeps happening, keeps happening, it keeps happening. You find that there are instances where somebody is in an abusive relationship, but they actually stand up for the person that's abusing them, say, no, but he does not. He only does this when he's drunk. But it's no excuse. You understand? So I think those are some of the things that happens in our society. And we also are aware of it as people that reside within that community. We know that, hey, this, I saw my neighbor, hey, he was drunk today. In all likelihood, this is what's going to happen tonight. They're going to have a fight. So it's kind of like we normalize some of those things that are happening within the community. But I think it's about time that we as the community, because we reside in the community, we are aware of what is happening. Then you can just pick up your phone and call the police and alert them and say, hey, this is what is happening. With gender-based violence seems to escalate all the time. So if it starts small, somebody maybe would be abusive verbally, maybe they don't provide you financially and stuff, then they start to beat you up, then they apologize, then they normalize the situation where you kind of, you relax to say, okay, I think it was a once-off thing. And then after beating you up, then they blame it on you and say, why do you always make me to beat you up? So the next time it becomes worse than the initial altercation, to a certain extent that it might even result in somebody else being killed.
Now, in every family, there's always children, The kids are watching this. So the young boy is seeing his father's behavior, and in his mind, he's normalizing the behavior. The young girl is looking at how mom accepts daddy's treatment, and she normalizes this treatment, which is shuti kahle kahle, this is how I'm supposed to be treated. This is how love is demonstrated. Is that part of the problem that we are having?
If I had to go into what Bongani shared with us, he touched on the issue of a couple getting divorced and then the couple making up. But there's also abuse of the child in the house. The father is abusing the little girl. When the mother gets to know about what is going on, she refuses to report it. For one simple reason is the father is the breadwinner in the house. If she reports that the father raped her daughter, then it means that daddy will get arrested. And she guilt trips the little girl into, you can't say what happened to you. Because if you say what happened to you, the police will come and arrest daddy. And then daddy will go to prison. So if you don't have food to eat, you have yourself to blame because you should have not opened up and said anything. But in my view, we've got to start educating our children from the moment they enter the creches. Your 2-year-old is starting with play school. If the teacher in the play school knows how to teach a child to speak up for herself, half your battle is won.
I don't know if a lot of people know that a lot of men, they have their first sexual encounter with an older woman. A lot of men have their first sexual encounter with an older woman as young boys. In Zulu, we have this thing, an old woman would take a young boy, say, which means in direct translation, come here, let Granny have a smoke of her pipe, which is, you'll then get an old woman kissing a boy child's penis. And it's a norm in society. Now imagine Mkulu kissing a young girl's vagina. It's unacceptable. So it's these societal norms that I speak about, these things that we need to look at as society. That let us look into how is a boy child introduced. Have these conversations with your son. Tell him to look after his body just as much as you teach the girl child to look after her body. We need to have these discussions with our boys, because where does that boy child go after having that experience? He goes to younger girls. and he goes and does the very same thing that the auntie was doing to him. Now a young boy is starting to rape at an early age. He's starting to rape youngsters, and then it becomes a norm. I just thought I should bring that perspective in terms of what Roshni was talking about, because we don't associate boys with being raped. And then we wonder, why do some men have such disrespect for sex? Because to them, sex is just this thing that you just do. When we talk about societal norms, I always say, I think that's one of the biggest problems. Like Bongani said earlier on, it's none of my business. And in fact, we even take it a step further, Bongani. We pull out our cell phones. We will see something happening to somebody, we pull out our cell phone. Instead of getting help for somebody, we wanna videoize it so that we can post it on social media and ridicule people's pain on social media instead of actually doing something about it. We know ukuthi umama wakamakhelwane ushaya ubaba wakamakhelwane, but instead of actually us calling the cops, because you can do that. Am I correct?
You have a responsibility to report any crime that you witness. Even if I am an abused woman and my husband is beating me up and I don't want to get help for myself, but the mere fact that you are my neighbor and you are witnessing this occurring on a daily or a weekly basis, you have knowledge of the crime that's taking place. So you have a responsibility to report.
Interesting. Bongan?
Yes, sir. Without revealing my age, a couple of years back while I was still in high school, our high school teacher once narrated us this story, and it's something that has stayed with me since then up until now. A boy child from next door, he kept on pestering his dad that he wanted a wife. Say, Tata ndifuna umfazi, Tata ndifuna umfazi. And then the father decided one day, said, let me just listen to this boy. Okay, you said you want a wife. He says, yes, ndifuna umfazi, Tata. I said, oh, okay. Why do you want a wife? Athi ndifuna umfazi, ndifuna ukumbetha ngento. Loosely translated to, I want a wife so I can beat her up. So you understand that those are some of the things that are happening. If a child is brought up in a family where he sees this thing happening all the time, to him it's a norm. So for the reason for him to have a wife is just to have a wife so I can beat her up. So coming back to some of the things that we could start looking at as part of the solution is to talk about these things. And then we speak to the people that will be able or are in a better position also to spread out messages. We've got quite a lot of organizations in the communities that are looking out for people with disabilities, people that have been abused. But there are also other initiatives that are being done by community-based organizations. If you look at the program that we had recently, Under the Tree, where we say it's targeted at boys at a young age, we need to start talking about this. So we go sit under the tree, then we discuss some of the problems, some of the challenges that we have as men, as boys. Then we say, okay, this is the situation that we have. How do we address this? And it kind of like it allows them that platform, because they would also have so many questions that they actually seek answers to. But it also depends on the family background. Maybe you don't have that type of an open relationship with your dad where you would want to ask questions. So if we have platforms such as those to say, okay, let's talk about this. What is it? What's troubling you? Let's just tap into your mind. How do you perceive things? We, as the society, we just need to be more involved. And it's about time that as a society we need to say, okay, this is what is happening, it's enough, but we need to start having positive role models in the community.
Great stuff. I love especially more your last part, information flow, but more importantly, positive role models. I think we tend to give too much highlight to people who do negative things. In this day and age, you can go and feed 1,000 orphans in the valley. No one will write about you, but call somebody a derogatory name, you'll make headlines. A lot of people try and make positive change. As just 1 minute each, just to wrap up, anything that you want to add in closing?
When I was a young mum and my kids were little, toddlers, I used to be very close to a young teenage girl. And she looked up to me. There was nothing in the world that I could not get her to do. And yet this child will not take any advice from her own mum. At that point in time, I remember making a statement, and I said, I wish one day there comes along somebody in my children's life the way I am in this young girl's life. So to the parent out there, I'm saying, find a positive role model for your child other than yourself. And to the child out there, if you know that you cannot get yourself to open up to your parent, you yourself find a role model that you can open up to.
Dilek.
There is a saying that silence is golden. Silence is not always golden. The second closing point that I would like to make is that it takes a village to raise
a
a child.
Bongan.
I think it is up to us as individuals that are living within that community to say, let's just be active citizens. Let me see, what is it that I can do? Because you just need to give time. If you've got that time, say, okay, I'm just going to invest 2 hours of my time over the weekend. Every little bit counts. So I think that's what I would like to urge, say that as community members, I think let's just try and have an active role in terms of shaping our community for better.
If you hear their conclusions, all three of them are making exactly the same point, that we can all contribute towards creating a better society. We all need to actually stop this victim and handout mentality that some of us have, of expecting somebody to do it for us, of expecting the government to provide solutions. Certain things don't need government. Certain things don't need the president. Certain things don't need the minister. Certain things don't need your councillor. Certain things just need you to be active in your community. It's that old saying, I don't remember which one of the American presidents who said, it's not about what my country can do for me, but rather what can I do for my country. If we all start adopting that mentality, we will be one step in the right direction. And that is all it takes. Change starts with the first step. Change starts with the first step. And I really love the essence of the message, the closing message, of if we can help our youngsters discover their greatness, the greatness within them through talent. If you look at what Ndilega's organization does, it helps people with disabilities not realize their disabilities, but realize their talent. That's the solution. We need to help people find the greatness within them. We need to inspire people to strive for more. We need to inspire people to strive to be better. We need to strive for a better society. And that can only be achieved if we all look for greatness. And there's greatness in each and every one of us. And if we constantly remind each other of that greatness, we will win this battle. I thank you.